will run PR company PR. I also run a branding service called Positioning You. And the reason for this, the reason why I decided to start offering personal branding service, just because extremely important, especially during the lockdown and pandemic. It was so obvious that, as a leader or somebody that's in a position of leadership or that will be in a position of leadership, it's something you sort of need to control. It's something you need to own in the process. Personal branding, what, why, and who. This is what we're going to be covering today for 40 minutes. Personal branding is, I like this quote, a great personal brand will differentiate you from your competitors and it would allow you to build trust with prospective clients. Basically, a personal brand is a unique combination of skills and experiences that make you who you are. It is how you present yourself to the world. What does the world think about you? That is technically your personal brand. So that is why it is very important, because it's literally your projection. What do people think about you? So why should you build a personal brand? Why should you even be concerned with, this term called personal brand? The reason is most times you will never get a second chance to make a first impression. So make sure that the first impression that you make will set you apart, and it also reflects who you are. Personal branding allows you to control your personal narrative. So basically covering who you are. What are you passionate about? What do you want to achieve? What impact do you want to make in the world? What impact do you want to make in the industry? You are allowed to, with personal branding, you are enabled to control that narrative, to control what people know about you and what people think about you. Personal branding also allows you to align your brand with your overall goals. So this is also very integral. Personal branding is an intentional act. Building your personal brand is an intentional act, right? And if you have a goal, so for example, I want to launch a company, I'm launching a tech startup, and I'm going to be raising funds in a few months, right? That is sort of your goal. And you say, because I'm going to be raising funds and I'm starting this new sort of tech startup, I want to start building my personal brand. So in that situation, why would you want to start building your personal brand? You want people to sort of fund your business, right? You want people to sort of invest in your business. So before people invest in your business, they want to know who is behind this startup, right? What are their credentials? What is their track record? So people want to know this information. So you use personal brand to sort of make sure that people know these things about you. Use personal brand to build credibility, so that when you're talking to investors, they know who you are, they know your story, they know your journey, they know that you are credible. So that's how you can use personal brand to achieve your goals and, your goals for yourself. You can position yourself for bigger and better opportunities. I just give an example now about an opportunity in terms of seeking funding. It could be any opportunity in your career journey or in your professional journey that you want to achieve. And personal branding allows you to position yourself for those opportunities. How? Because people know exactly who you are. And what do they know about you? Through personal branding, they will know what you stand for. They would know where you are currently in your career, where you were before currently in your career, the impact impacts you've made in your career journey, your skills, your capabilities, what you can do for them. So it positions you for bigger and better opportunities. So these are just a few reasons why you should build a personal brand. Okay, sorry, this thing is delaying. So by the time I want to move, it's gone. So who should build a personal brand, right? We've shared why you should build a personal brand. Now, who should build a personal brand? So personal branding is suitable for entrepreneurs. I've given an example, previously about an entrepreneur seeking funding, just to sort of give you context in terms of how it can help. Also for career professionals, even if you decide that, you want to, work in a company within tech, it is also essential. A lot of people sometimes feel, oh, I'm in an office, or, I'm not an entrepreneur, I do not need a personal brand. But you can get, when you work in an organization, there's need for visibility within that organization, right? So that as well, you can open up opportunities, promotion opportunities, opportunities to serve in a bigger capacity within the organization, and people who are in transition. So you're a professional and now you're venturing into entrepreneurship. You are an executive at some point, or you are a manager, or you are an assistant brand manager, and you're moving into becoming a manager, an entrepreneur to a board member position. So personal branding is for anybody, to be honest. I would say it is for anybody who is serious about their career journey, who wants to unlock opportunities within that journey, and who wants to make sure they control their narrative. Okay. Now, FAQs about personal branding. These are some questions we get, frequently about, personal branding. Do you have to put yourself out there, or can you rely on letting your work speak for itself? I know that there are a lot of people who are sort of shy, who are publicity shy, who feel that, constantly talking about their achievements, people will think that they're proud, people will not think that they are humble, who constantly talks about their achievements. But if you don't speak about yourself, who's going to speak for you, right? And it's very important that you don't allow others to sort of frame your own narrative for you, that you do the telling yourself. So letting your work speak for yourself, it's good, but it can only get you so far, mainly because people see what is visible, what is glaring. People might know you within your industry, but apart from within your sort of industry, you might not have visibility there, just because you're not building your personal brand. So while your work is amazing, people might not know that your work is amazing, just because they haven't encountered you. They don't work with you. They're not your past colleagues. You've not encountered them at some point during your career, so they don't know about you. So they're sort of limiting your exposure and your visibility. And when you just allow your work to speak for yourself. Okay, I'm an introvert and I do not feel comfortable self-promoting, speaking in public, or posting on social media. Even sometimes I consider myself an extroverted introvert. When it's time for me to speak, I'm comfortable speaking. But if I had my way, would I be speaking? Not necessarily. So, but I'm a PR professional. It's very important that I am building my own personal brand. So you find the right balance in terms of what makes you comfortable, but also not necessarily extremely comfortable. Because if for example, what makes me comfortable, completely and 100% comfortable, is not posting on social media at all. allowing my work speak for itself. But I know that that's not going to cut it. So because of that, I have come up with something, a schedule that I know that I can be consistent with. I've come up with a plan to build my personal brand that I know that I can be consistent with. And that just scares me just a little, but not all. It doesn't scare me too much that I abandon it completely, but it scares me just a little. So if it is okay, I'm going to, frame it differently. I'm going to post on LinkedIn twice a week about stuff I'm doing in the office. So coming up with a plan that works for you, but that scares you a little. If it doesn't scare you a little, then it's too comfortable of a plan and it's not going to get you where you want to be. Can you do this at any age, or is there a point where it's too late? Of course, you can start building your personal brand at any point in your career, at every age possible, especially once you know what you want to achieve, once you've aligned your goals, you know why you're building your personal brand, you can start immediately. What if opportunities pay the bills, although they can potentially dilute your own personal brand? So what I'm going to sort of widen this question for you guys. There's certain opportunities that may come your way, but are not right for your brand, right? It could be board opportunities. It could be speaking opportunities. It could be different, like a different array of opportunities that can come your way. It could be an interview opportunity that can come your way. But if you believe that it does not align with your brand, then there's no point. And this is what personal branding does, right? Personal branding would help you know what is my brand, right? What are the things I care about? What are the things I should be speaking about? When they call me for an interview, these are the areas I want the interview to focus on. Instantly, once you've mapped those things out, when an opportunity comes your way, you can instantly tell this opportunity does not align with my brand. Therefore, no, bye-bye, it's not for me right now. How do you go about personal branding when you want to keep your company vehemently separate from yourself? Some of you will be building brands and businesses that, you can't 100% separate your business from your brand, especially when you're at a certain stage of your business. Maybe, for example, when you're seeking, like the example I gave earlier, like seeking funding or seeking investment for a startup. At that stage, people kind of want to know who's behind it, right? Who's behind the brand? Yes, the idea is great, but can the person behind the brand really take this from a concept to an actual business? And can this person execute and create a profitable business? So at that point, your personal brand can, in a way, is in a way intertwined with who you are. But that doesn't mean that you can't keep certain things private in building your personal brand and keeping the message a bit more focused. What do I mean by this? Sorry. What do I mean by this? So I've given the example of a tech entrepreneur, launching a startup, seeking funding and investment. And this entrepreneur also has an Instagram page or a Twitter page. And like I've mentioned, that in certain stages, especially at that stage of the business, it's important, that sort of integration, it's sort of necessary, right? But how do you then keep sort of like your personal and make it a bit more focused? That is where sort of like content comes into play. So like I said, tech entrepreneur seeking funding, you should be talking about on your own page. I would expect that you're talking about this new business, your hope for this new business, sharing ideas depending on what the business is about, sharing sort of industry knowledge, sharing sort of, if you're going for like courses and, just sharing that journey. I would not necessarily expect to see you dancing at an Owambe party on your Instagram page, right? That you can keep it, maybe have a private page or something that you can keep it for yourself, or maybe it's your mom's maybe it's your mom's 85th birthday. Yes, you can do a post and tie that into certain things, but maybe not one of her like dancing when you're, dancing or something, so you can find a way to sort of tailor your content to make sure that certain aspects of yourself are still sort of kept private, right? How long does it take to build a brand, and how do you know if your brand is heading in the right direction? Building your personal brand, I think it's a lifelong process, right? As long as you're doing, think Richard Branson, right? He's been building his personal brand for over 20 years, and he's still building his brand. It is a journey. But how do you then know you're going in the right direction? That is why, which we'll talk about in the next few slides. Your personal branding has to be, in building your personal brand, you have to be guided by key milestones for yourself, key objectives that you want this process to fulfill. So for example, if I say, okay, I'm building my personal brand because in the next 3 years or in the next 2 years, I want to, lead, be head of a tech startup, right? Be the COO of a tech startup. Now, maybe in the next, okay, let me give myself a longer time. I want to do timeline. I want to do this in 5 years. Right? So, okay, this is what I want to do in 5 years. So what do I want to do in 1 year? This is the goal in 5 years. What do I want to do in 1 year? In 1 year, at least I want to be known amongst people in the tech industry as, someone who is actively, invested, actively participating and adding value to the industry through sort of like solutions. That's what I want to do. I want people to sort of know about me, right? In 2 years time, I want to translate this. People now know about me. Maybe I am, before I become a COO, I'm already, I'm getting headhunters approaching me for certain positions, maybe for an executive position, not even necessarily the CEO, an executive position within the tech industry. So this is how you've sort of broken sort of your 5-year plan into, okay, this is the mark I need to reach in 2 years. This is the mark I need to reach in 1 year. So if that it's working, because in 1 year, in a year's time, people sort of know you in the industry. On LinkedIn, maybe you're getting you're getting more requests from people within your industry, and like, oh, okay. And you're having those sort of connections. So, okay, I'm moving in the right path. Then in the 2-year mark, you're getting some, people in, recruiters saying, oh, I like your profile. Are you looking? I have an opportunity. I want to jump on a call. So that's how you know. So, you're moving in the right direction, because you're building your personal brand. It has to be guided by objectives. It has to be guided by milestones. So that way you are able to gauge, okay, am I reaching my milestones? And when you are reaching those milestones, you're doing the right thing. So now we're going straight into the personal branding journey. So the personal branding journey. Framing your purpose. So this is sort of the core of building a personal brand. You have to sort of frame your purpose. So meaning, why do I do what I do, right? And under framing your purpose, you need to identify who you are. Who am I? What is my why? What are my goals? What is my unique value proposition? So who am I, right? Am I, I'm a tech entrepreneur. What is my why? Why am I doing what I'm doing? What impact do I want to have in the world? What legacy do I want to build? Those things sort of frame your why. Your why is kind of like that really big question that you need to sort of figure out. Because if you're unable to frame your purpose, or frame your purpose correctly, and define your purpose correctly, then this kind of is the foundation, and then everything else doesn't just quite fit, right? So that's why this part is important. Finding your why. Your why is literally your purpose, why you're doing what you are doing. Why do I get up every day and do, for example, why do I do PR? Why am I in it? Why am I, a publicist? Why am I in PR? And for me, I'm in PR because I want to sort of positively impact, the media and communications landscape in Nigeria. And I want to also impact brands, and give them the tools to be able to create value that affects, people as a whole. So that is why I do what I do, right? So it's very important that in your process, you find out your why and why you do what you do. In finding your why, there are various questions that you can ask, right? If you don't yet know your why do I get up in the morning and do what I do? What gives me joy? What do people always come to me for? So if, for example, you're that, you are, what do people always come to me for, right? So finding your why, finding your purpose. So another thing you can talk about is framing your goals. Basically, what do I want to achieve? What do I want to achieve? Literally, what do I want to achieve? What do I want to achieve in the short term, in the medium term, in the long term? In the short term, 1 to 2 years. In the medium term, 2 to 3 years. In the long term, 5 years, right? What do I want to achieve? What is my unique value proposition? What do I bring to the table that other people don't bring to the table? What do people know me for? What do people call me to do for, right? What is that unique thing that I bring to the table, right? For me, as a PR person, my unique value proposition is I bring excellence to everything that I do. I bring excellence, I bring attention to detail to everything that I do. People know that about me, that I bring excellence, I bring, attention to detail with everything that I do. So what is that thing that you bring to the table, right? That nobody else, that people know you for? People say, when they say, they're like, okay, Israel, this is what Israel brings to the table. I know Israel to be very, Israel is, a good negotiator, right? Put Israel in the room with anyone and, he will break them. He's a good negotiator. What is your unique value proposition, right? So this is another aspect of yourself. I know Ezekiel, Ezekiel is an impeccable closer, right? He's an impeccable closer. He can close any deal. He knows an impeccable closer. Fire is, a people's person. So find out that thing that makes you unique, that you bring to the table that other people cannot, and that you are known for. That is your unique value proposition. So the next thing is, you kind of have to, when you've sort of found out your why, when you framed your goals, what you want to achieve in the short, medium to long term, when you've sort of identified your unique value proposition, you then also need to sort of, assess your personal brand and identify where you are with your personal brand. So what is my digital footprint? So when I Google myself, what comes up about me, right? Can I see, is there a history of, my journey so far, or is it just like bits and bobs here about myself, but are not sort of put together it's not sort of cohesive, right? So you can't really, okay, you look at this, you look at this, you look at that, you can't really tell who the person is. So, this is a very honest process. Google yourself, see what your digital footprint is like, right? Do I have presence? Okay, if I have presence, if the answer is yes, if I have presence, what type of presence do I have? Is it cohesive? Okay, do I have presence? No. Okay, I don't have presence. Okay, how do I start, building presence? So basically really identify the status quo of your personal brand, where you are within your personal brand. Am I at a point where, like, I'm completely, newbie, completely starting out, I have no presence? So this is very important, because once you know where you are, you then know the things you need to do to get you where you need to be. Do you have brand assets? So for example, what are brand assets? Do I have, these are sort of like your own, I'll say here that these are sort of like your own assets, right? So do I have like a Medium page that I go on and post things on? Do I sort of, once in a while, put together like an article in a newsletter format and send it out to people? On my Instagram page, do I have Ask Me Question Mondays with Fire or with Ezekiel, where I answer questions that people have concerning my industry? Do you have any of this? If you don't have any of this, it's fine, but it's just important to know what you have and what you don't have. Who are your role models? So who, when you think about searching people's personal brands, who do you feel like, okay, I really love the way this person is going with her personal brand, how this person is building their own personal brand. I'm inspired by their journey, so that way you're able to learn from them, right? And pick up some tips along the way and say, okay, this is how this person does this, so this is how this person does that. A lady that I absolutely love her personal brand, she's not based in Nigeria, is Sheryl Sandberg. I like the fact that, she is, what I like about her brand especially is, this is someone who is not an entrepreneur. She works in tech. She works as a CEO of Facebook, but she's literally sort of taking charge of her narrative, and it has opened up various opportunities for her. She's an author. She wrote the book Lean In. That is a brand asset that she owns. And she's doing amazing things with leanin.org. So that is someone who, has taken charge of her personal brand and is sort of mapping her way. And this is someone who is in an organization. She's not even going out on her own, and has somewhat become, a spokesperson for Facebook, and and their sort of approach to women in leadership. So these are sort of, it's good to identify role models, and identify what you like about the way they've gone about building their own personal brands as well. Identify your target audience. So this is where you identify your target audience. Is basically, in a nutshell, who am I speaking to, right? Who needs to know I exist? Who needs to know about my brand? Who should know about the amazing work I'm doing? Who should know that, I just did this 2 weeks ago. I just did this last week. I'm going to do this big thing in 10 years time. That is literally your target audience. So who are you targeting? Who are you? It's very, very important to know who you're targeting. The reason for this is, once you know who you're speaking to, then you can frame your content. You can frame your content around who you're speaking to. You can frame your choice of platforms, your choice of brand assets to who you're speaking to. So the people I'm speaking to, are they on Instagram? If they're not on Instagram, then I don't think I should be talking about my work and, all these things I want to do on Instagram, right? So let's go back. Let's go back to my example of my very first example of the tech entrepreneur who is starting up a tech company and is looking for funding. So who exactly is this tech entrepreneur targeting? Of course, he's targeting, angel investors, VC folks, people within the, titans within the industry, because they would also know other people who are interested in, who are looking to invest in tech startups, right? So these are some of the people he's targeting at right now, right? Because his goal is, okay, I want to build, I want to gain investment, right? So let's look at the entrepreneur from like sort of like 2 year. So right now he wants to get funding for his business. After he wants to get funding, he hopes that, when the business has launched and is doing well in the next 2 to 3 years, he also wants to build a community that incubates aspiring tech entrepreneurs, right? So right now, within that, his target audience, he might also be targeting, because this is his plan in 2 years, in 3 years, he might be targeting, young tech entrepreneurs who are looking to set up their businesses in a few years' time. So once you know your target audience, right, you are able to then tailor your content to your target audience. You're able to sort of tailor your platforms to your target audience, right? So do you have more than one target audience? So for example, for our tech entrepreneur called, let me finally give him a name, Daddy. So for Daddy, we've identified angel investors, we've identified people in VC, we've identified titans and people within the tech industry. We've also identified young, aspiring tech entrepreneurs, future tech entrepreneurs. So for now, he has four people that he's targeting. Okay, this is great. Now we know who that is targeting. Now, where are these people? That's another thing. So once you've narrowed down who your target audience is, you now need to find out, where are they? Why do I need to know where they are? Because that is where I should be. I should not be where, my target audience is not there. If they are not there, then I don't, I shouldn't be there. So you find out, where are these people? Once you know where they are, that is where you should be getting your messaging across. That is where you should be pushing your content to, right? So if they're on, you find out, okay, these people are mostly on LinkedIn or, beyond digital, because a lot of, yes, digital is really important in building your personal brand, because that is the world that we are in now. But also offline channels are also important. Like, what do I mean by offline channels? This could be in form of speaking engagements within a conference. This could be being a part of a network, or being a part of a group, or being a part of a club that sort of opened you up to these people, right? So where are they? Are they in, is there a club for like CEOs and tech entrepreneurs, or a specific group that you need to be in? Are they mostly reading, are they on LinkedIn versus Instagram? Are they on Twitter? So you literally need to identify each of these people that you've identified as your target audience. Where are they? And I think I've covered this. What channels do they engage with? So what do they engage with? Where do they, find out? Where do they find out information from? Right? Where do they, what sort of platforms do they interact with and naturally engage with? That's where you need to be. This thing. So after you've identified your target audience, you need to then define your communication strategy. So this is where this is content heavy, right? So what are my key messaging pillars? And let me just explain messaging pillars quickly and as simplified as possible. Your messaging pillars, I would say, are sort of your content anchors. They're sort of key topics that guide your personal brand and who you stand for, right? So I'm going to use myself as an example, and I'm going to use Daddy as an example. So for me, I'm in PR. I'm in the PR industry. Like I've mentioned, I've mentioned my why in terms of impacting the PR and communications landscape, sort of empowering brands to sort of also impact and create value, right? So for me, my messaging pillars, in addition to that, I'm involved in sort of building future, people within the PR industry. So for me, one of my messaging pillars is definitely, impact PR can make, the impact of PR within within the communications and larger the consumer landscape. That's like, sort of like a key messaging pillar for me, right? Another messaging pillar for me, somebody who's sort of interested in sort of building young entrepreneurs is also, building the young generation of communications professionals. So if these are my two messaging pillars, I have more, but I'm going to stick to two. I identified this as my two messaging pillars. What does this mean? It means that at certain points in time, you have to, if you do not associate my brand with these two things, then you know what, I'm not building my personal brand, I'm building something else. One, you need to associate my brand to say, oh, I know Ijeoma always speaks about, the impact PR can make, for businesses, for brands, and also the impact within the consumer landscape and what PR does and the ecosystem it creates for businesses and the consumers for value add. If you say, oh, Ijeoma is also passionate about, through, the Redrick Accelerate platform, she's passionate about, building the young generation of PR professionals and communications professionals, blah, 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 blah. If you don't know these two things about me, then okay, I'm not building my personal brand right, but also my messaging pillars have not been sort of spelled out clear enough. So your messaging pillars guide, who you are. Your messaging pillars are your anchors, are your content anchors. So every time you're in a position, even if it's a speaking engagement, even if you're writing an article or posting on LinkedIn, it should be tied to your messaging pillars, right? Now let's go to Dade, who is a tech entrepreneur, right? And is looking for funding, right? What would I say? Let me mention two of, he's looking for funding, and in the future, he kind of wants to, empower and, empower up and coming or future prospective tech entrepreneurs, right? So Dade, one of Dade's messaging pillars would be, within the tech landscape, how, building sustainable businesses, right? Talking about how you build a sustainable businesses within the tech ecosystem. That's sort of one of his messaging pillars. Another messaging pillar for Dade could also be speaking into his second like long-term goal to sort of have impact for tech entrepreneurs, could be upskilling and readiness for entrepreneurship within the tech industry. So Dade's content, on his Twitter, on Monday, on LinkedIn on Monday, he's talking about, processes that need to be in place to build a sustainable tech ecosystem that can impact, the society at large. He's constantly talking about, how to build sustainable businesses, the modules to apply to build sustainable businesses, right? Because he wants people to know that, he's looking for investment. He wants his investors to know that this guy, understands how to build a sustainable business. He understands the approach, so he's constantly talking about this, right? So that, okay, this is Dade, right? And this is his MO. And he's also constantly talking about, readiness for, to become a tech entrepreneur, how to become a tech entrepreneur, what you need to do, what skills you need to do, how you need to upskill yourself. So you identify these two messages, these two sort of content pillars with Dade. Right? So that is how you sort of know that, okay, that is sort of your messaging pillars. People must know you when they say, Fire or something, or Ezekiel, they know Ezekiel for this and they know him with this, because your messaging pillars guides it guides your content. Simply put, your messaging pillars guide your content, and your content must feed back into your goals and your why. So all of this is all interconnected. How do you keep up to date with your target audience? Where, when, how often? So you need to identify where, which I spoke about. So where do they normally engage with? When? So, you know, are these people who constantly want to be bombarded with like information, or does that even irritate them? You know, some people, when, you know, in certain industries, talking too much and talking is quite, it's not, you know, it's not looked, it's perceived in a certain way, right? So maybe, you know, based on that, you post about things once or twice a week, 3 times a week, rather than, you know, every day or every minute of the hour, you're sharing this and you're sharing that and you're sharing that. So it all ties in together. And how often, like I said, how frequently. Do you have an existing footprint? So one, like I mentioned, doing like you know, looking through your doing an audit and figuring out where am I from a personal branding perspective. You know, do I have an online footprint? Do I have an offline footprint? For example, by offline footprint, like I mentioned before, it could relate to, you know, beyond like media. It could also relate to like am I being called for speaking engagements? Am I in people's list of, you know, people to be called for speaking engagements? Am I in a specific club that I should be in? Am I part of a specific network? Have you been featured in the press or recognized by an organization? So have you received any awards? Have you had any interviews? Have you had any features, right? So these are things that you sort of need to answer. And if you require them, also need to address how you're then going to, okay, no, I haven't been featured in the press. How can I be featured in the press? How do you plan to leverage your network? So because your network is sort of a good base for personal brand building, right? And say, okay, how can I leverage my network to sort of further enhance my brand and further gain visibility? How do you position your brand through communications? So key to positioning your brand is using digital and using PR. Digital in terms of taking care of the digital aspects, your own content, social media. PR in terms of media. So these are 2 elements you require to build your personal brand. So I share here some tips and tricks, but let me just spend a few more minutes going through digital and PR. Digital addresses your own content and your own media platforms and digital platforms. So digital would be, for example, your LinkedIn page, your Twitter page, your Instagram page, Medium, what again, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, for example, that's sort of covered within digital newsletters, that's covered within digital. PR speaks specifically to media, right? So for example, print media, online media, TV media, radio media. So in positioning your personal brand, these 2 sort of need to work together, right? In terms of digital sort of helping you drive, they both work together to drive your narrative and to also drive your key messaging pillars. And if you look at individuals who have very strong personal brands, you will notice that digital and PR play an important role. So PR, like I said, speaks to media, radio interviews, TV interviews, contributory articles in a print newspaper, a feature interview, you know, in a print newspaper or on an online platform. So PR specifically speaks to leveraging media to position your brand and to gain visibility, while digital speaks to leveraging digital platforms, leveraging the web, Wikipedia, for example, to position and build your personal brand. So tips and tricks that you can implement immediately. when I usually, we usually talk about personal branding, a lot of people want to know, okay, this is great, but what can I do now? So it's very important that, I leave everyone with something that they can actually implement right away. First things first, like I said, Google yourself. What do you see? Google yourself. Find out, do an audit, a digital audit of yourself. See, does this really reflect my why? Does it reflect my purpose? Does it really reflect things I want to be talking about, right now? If it doesn't, at least you then know, and you now know what to do about it. I know the steps to take. Optimize your LinkedIn profile using the LinkedIn Executive Handbook. This is available for everyone to use. So you can optimize your LinkedIn profile and make sure your LinkedIn is, fully functional, is as fully functional as it can be. Another thing you can do is set up a Google Alerts on your name. This is more important when, or your brand, if you own a business, this is more important when you start sort of engaging press and engaging media. That way you're able to keep track with what is said about you. Or if, for example, you're already at a position where you go for conferences, you go for speaking engagements, it would be good to sort of, set up a Google Alert on your name. For people within an organization or who want to transition to an organization at some point in their careers, seek opportunities within that organization to gain visibility. So seek opportunities that, and I'm going to extend this also to networks, because sometimes we're part of networks, and some of these networks are they're very influential. They have very influential people there. But if you're not visible within that WhatsApp group that you're on that has, tech entrepreneurs, or that has people within your industry in there, if you're not visible within that, then there's certain opportunities that might not open up to you, not because you're not capable, but because you're not visible. They don't know about you, they don't know what you do. So if you're in a WhatsApp group, when you post something, or when something happens in your business or in your life, or you are in a speaking engagement, share it, let people know what you're doing, carry them along, right? So that the opportunities that are available within that network, you can leverage them and take advantage of them. Use the same name for all your social media handles across all platforms. So it should not be, if your name is, my name, for example, my name is Ijeoma Balogun, it should be Ijeoma Balogun across all platforms. So for example, let me use myself as an example. My full name is actually longer than the name I use. My full name is Ije Busoma, but most people call me Ijeoma, and that's sort of like my professional name. So for example, in all my professional things, I use Ijeoma Balogun. So I'm not, it will be very confusing for some people if my LinkedIn is Ijeoma Balogun, but then my Instagram is Ije Busoma Balogun, then my Twitter is now Busoma Balogun. Like, who's this person? Nobody is going to be able to tie, Busoma Balogun and Ije Busoma Balogun and Ijeoma Balogun and think they're the same person. So be consistent. Make sure across all your social media handles you're using the same name. So that way people can even, truth of the matter that human beings are naturally inquisitive, especially when they're interested. They see something that is of interest in your profile. So if I see something that's of interest in your profile, I would just Google, I see your LinkedIn, maybe check you out on Twitter, check you out on Instagram if you're there. So human beings are naturally inquisitive. So make sure that, especially when in those pages, you're actually sharing your story, it's important that at least you give it some eyeballs. Invest in professional photos. Your LinkedIn profile picture, if it should be professional photos, good headshots, good power poses, you in your element, so that when you also do have these sort of interview opportunities or speaking engagements, you have them there to just send it through, and then you have like a very professional setup and a professional outlook. Create brand hashtags that you can include in all your posts. This could be your name. So for example, your brand hashtag could be Ijeoma Balogun. That's, across all the posts I do on Twitter or on Instagram. So, that's such a good way. So when people click on that already, they see all the work that you've done, and they're able to sort of see your sort of career progression and your journey so far. Create a content index of yourself. So basically, a content index is just it's a document where once you've done your audit, all the things that you've identified, all the stories about you. This is good when a content index is good at certain stages. It's good when already you have an existing footprint to sort of properly do your edits. It will be good. And this is also good when you're also gaining visibility as well, and you're aggressively sort of engaging press and media. So I'm going to explain at each stage and why it's important. So at the stage of, you do your content index, you Google yourself and you put together your content index. You then find out really what do people know about me. It's so glaring, right? And you can put them into categories. So for example, if this is you for the first time, you're doing a content index, you have certain stories and features. By the time you categorize it, you would know, one, if you've been building a personal brand, so okay, yes, I have a little bit of this, a little bit of that, or if you have nothing at all. So once you know, when you know where you are, you're able to now know what you need to do in the next step. Now, when you are already gaining already, or you're at a point in your career where you already get a decent amount of like inquiries and a decent amount of press, this helps you to know, one, going back to your messaging pillars. Am I covering all my messaging pillars? Do I only focus on messaging pillar 1, or do I only focus on messaging pillar 2? Or am I giving good, should I say, good visibility to all areas and aspects of my personal brand? So that is why, creating a content index for yourself is really important. And thank you. So please let me know, this is the time for questions. Let me know if you have any questions.
Guys, you can just unmute yourself if you have any questions. It's really important to ask questions because this has been a lot. Thank you, Ijeoma. It's really, really amazing. Lots of nuggets, lots of, sort of like really great insights that I think people on this call can actually start to sort of like implement immediately. And so guys, please ask your questions so that if there's anything that you want to know, ask it now, because after that, Ijeoma is not going to be here to answer these questions.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi, Esther.
Okay, thank you so much for the lecture. It's really been insightful. I want to ask a question. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm actually taking product design here and at university, and I'm actually kind of new to the personal branding stuff. I'm practically new to personal branding. I've heard about it and know that, but like, okay, how do I start? How do I go about it? Like, and another question is, okay, how does one start out? Okay, if I'm starting out and I want to brand myself, do I just, okay, as a newbie in this field, do I just start trying to do all the things listed here, or I allow life happen, like based on my choices and all that, then before I know, okay, this is how I want to brand myself, or this is exactly what I want to do.
Okay.
I don't know if you get my...
I get you. So you say you're taking product design, right?
Yes.
Okay. In the university, you're a student.
No, university.
Okay. So you're taking product design. So, so you can build your personal brand at every stage and every point of your career. And what happens is you evolve and you grow. So let me give you an example of my career journey. I've been working since I was 18. I used to work I used to work for Bella Ninja in their style team. I used to be their style editor there. I worked there till, I finished university. And when I finished university, I started a PR company. When I started my PR company, because my history and my background was in fashion and in style, it kind of was catering to, fashion businesses, style businesses. But right now, a few years, 8 years down the line, we literally have no fashion business. We're mostly focused on like consumer, lifestyle, and tech brands. So you can see how, one, my personal brand has evolved over the course of a few years, right? Over the course of years. So an individual, who you are will definitely evolve. But it's important that you start telling your story as soon as you can start telling your story and start building your narrative, because guess what? It all ties in together. So maybe you might say to yourself right now, okay, now I'm doing product design, but what if in 10 years I'm completely doing something different? Will it be, and I built my brand, in the beginning stages, I built my brand and I'm kind of known for this. Now I'm segueing into something else. Does it add value, or would people think it does add value? Why would I say that? So going back to myself and as an example, like I said, I started working when I was 18. So even now in telling my story, I use that to demonstrate, my self-starting capabilities. Like, I've always been a self-starter. I was self-starting in 18. I've always been a self-starter. I use that to tell my story. I use that to tell my story in terms of like my work ethic, in terms of, okay, I've been working since 18. So it still ties in and builds and adds to this new story. Although if you look at it, I've gone from one end to another end, from being like a writer, a style journalist, to now owning a PR company that doesn't even do anything really in fashion, right? But it still adds and still contributes to my story. So now what can you start with? You can start with you can start building your in terms of content. What am I doing? Why are you studying product design? You must be passionate about product design. So talking about that, using that to build your own content in terms of, sharing articles about, the product design industry globally, where it is moving to, where it's heading to, sharing your opinions about that, right now. So it's best, especially, especially because you have digital assets available to you. You can start building that journey now, right? So sharing about, for example, you have a LinkedIn page, you set up your LinkedIn page. In your LinkedIn page, you say, currently a student, and studying product design. So people know exactly, what you're doing right now, right? And then you share articles, you share, things that are relevant to your, you share things that are relevant to your industry. So you can definitely start now. And like I said, it is a journey. That's why in the beginning I said, personal branding is not something that starts and ends. As individuals in life, we constantly evolve. So your personal brand also evolves with you. But what is essentially, what is most important is that you own your narrative, that people see what you want them to see at that point in time, right? At that point in time of your career, they're seeing what you want them to see, not what is, what they've put together from a mix of what you says on Facebook, what it says on Instagram, what your, unoptimized LinkedIn page or absent LinkedIn page says about you, but what you want them to see about you. I hope that answers your question, Esther.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay, sorry. I want to ask, would you leave a note like the slides you use for us, like for us to go
Okay,
through?
Yes, I can share I'll share the slides with Obianuju, and then I'm sure she'll share it, get it across to you.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Does anyone have a question? Thank you so much, Ijeoma, It was quite insightful and very informative for me. Um, we can take one more question. Does anyone have a question to ask Ijeoma? Okay, so I have a question. As someone transitioning into a new career, let's say
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing marketing for a number of years and
Mm-hmm.
different industry, and I want to move to, let's say, tech.
Mm-hmm.
And I've built a brand around that. Everybody knows this is what I do, and I want to, give a different narrative. How do I go about doing that?
So I have a question. Do you want to still be doing marketing, but you want to do marketing within tech? Or do you want to completely abandon marketing and just focus on tech?
Yes, I want to abandon my. I want to, I still want to retain the, you know, I just want to change the narrative. I don't want people to say, okay, this is what I do. Because they know, okay, this is what I've been doing, and this is the industry I've been working in, for a number of years. So I want to change that um, narrative, and say, okay, this is the industry I now work in, and I'm also trying to figure out, okay, where do I play in this industry? So how do I communicate that using the current media that I interact with?
Okay. So I would assume, right? And I'll assume certain things. One, in your sort of in highlighting sort of like your goals and objectives, this was sort of a plan you had for yourself at some point in time, right? Okay, I want to segue from marketing and I want to go 100% into tech, right? And if that's the situation, if this was depending on when you started mapping out this plan, there would have been various steps that would have followed this sort of plan, right? So in terms of one, there'll be certain internal steps in terms of, of course, making sure that you have a credible profile within the industry, making sure that you have the credentials it takes to get into this industry, right? So I'm assuming that that has already been done and covered. So you're sort of ready to sort of segue, because something we speak about, something I'm very passionate about, is ensuring that you know people building personal brands are actually credible. They're credible. They know what they're talking about. So in the process of that, in the process of that transition, already you start talking about the new industry you're going into, right? You start, before you've gotten that role, before, especially if now you're at a stage you've not gotten that role, or you want to be hired for that role, right? You start talking about the role and the industry. It now becomes, that area of tech that you want to specialize in or you want to play a part in now becomes part of your messaging pillars, right? So on LinkedIn, you're talking about that area, on Instagram, you're dedicating certain posts to that. Maybe you have a Medium page, that covers that area and covers that aspect of tech that you want to focus on, or you talking about tech in general. So at that point, when you are ready to, one, if you're the type of person who if you're a person who's currently looking for a job in that field, you're in marketing, you want to transition to tech, you've done all these things, then you already know you've connected to the right people, you're within the right network. Maybe before you were in the Marketing Association of Nigeria, that's fine, but now you now find that and identify tech communities and tech networks and people within the industry that you sort of want to be have within your network. You're following them on LinkedIn. You identify, have 10 follows. You have a target list of follows every month, and you follow them and make sure you're part of that community so that they can see your content, right? So you have one, first, by doing this, you've positioned yourself as somebody who is, yes, in marketing, but somebody who's very much interested and knows a lot about the tech industry, right? So that's for somebody who is looking to sort of then go, but doesn't yet have the opportunity. Now, for somebody who then gets the opportunity, because there is a track record, you didn't just wake up one day and now you're talking tech, when before you were talking marketing and experiential and, marketing talk, and all of a sudden you didn't wake up one day and you're now talking tech. There is a track record. So it is a sort of like a seamless transition. It's not seen as, oh my God, where did that come from? It's more like, oh, yes, she's been in marketing, but she's also very, talks about tech, has been talking about tech and this and this and that and that and that. So you have to be very, very intentional. So that goes back to be very intentional about sort of like your messaging. And this is where messaging pillars come into place, where you look at your messaging pillars, okay, and say, this is what I talk a lot about marketing, okay, but now I want to, talk more about tech. And you say, okay, you make tech one of your core messaging pillars, and you feed the content concerning tech, concerning that messaging pillars across the platforms that you engage with. And of course, going back to, identifying, because now you now have to sort of identify, okay, the target audience, because your target audience now changes or expands, becomes a bit more expansive, right? So you have to also do those steps, but it's more about, driving content and doing that in a very intentional, processed manner, right? To position yourself for that, either that opportunity or to make that transition easier. I have a question here. Have I answered that question?
Yes, you have.
Okay, I have a question here from Usman. He's saying he's having issues with his mic. His question is, how can we continue to measure and evaluate the impact of personal branding as soon as we start? So like I said, before you start your personal branding journey, go back to the foundational things, meaning finding your why, knowing your unique value proposition, and also knowing the objectives, why you want to do this in the first place. If you're not able to know why or set goals, like this is the reason why I'm doing this, that's why personal branding has to be intentional. It's not something you do just because. It's something you do because I want to do this because I see myself in this year, in this and this and this. That is the way building your personal brand sort of adds value to you. It's when it's intentional and when it is goal oriented. So you have a goal in place. So like I had given the example of, I think, Daddy, to say that when you set certain goals for yourself and you see yourself achieving those goals, you set certain milestones for yourself, you know that, it's working and you can evaluate immediately, right? So I know that, for example, okay, in the next, Daddy wants to be, fund his tech startup, right? He wants to fund his tech startup, or let's use someone who, I'm going to use Daddy and I'm going to use somebody within an organization. So Daddy wants to start his tech startup, and he's, actively, engaging. He knows his target audience. He's actively engaging them. How will he know he's working? Like he's getting on LinkedIn, some people are like approaching him, he's getting some people that, that are of interest trying to add him on LinkedIn. He's gone on interviews. He's talking about his company. There's some people saying, okay, I want to have a meeting with you to see what is your tech startup is about. He's getting meetings with investors. He's getting meetings with VCs, then he knows, okay, then this is how it's working. But if you don't have a goal in the beginning, how do you know it's working? So you have to set your goals. Goals are very integral to the evaluation process. Because if I don't set my goals, if I'm just doing this just because, I wouldn't know. Now, let's take into consideration somebody who is within an organization, right? Somebody is within an organization. Let's call this person Esther. Esther is working in a company. And how does Esther evaluate that she is, progressing? Esther's goal is to be, she's an assistant brand manager, and her goal is to be, a manager in the next 2 years, right? And how is Esther, this is Esther's goal. And what does Esther's done to achieve this goal. Esther has, in meetings, Esther makes sure she speaks up in when they are doing like certain slides and presentation slides. She makes sure she's involved in it, and also ask her manager for an opportunity to present so that she has FaceTime with executives and they know who she is. She makes herself visible. Maybe they're having a company CSR project, them as companies, she makes sure she's involved. So people see her, she make sure she's visible amongst the executives, right? These are the things she's doing. Also on her LinkedIn, you'll see her talking about her brands, the brands that she's working with, and just sharing sort of news about other brands, and maybe even doing case studies. Oh, this brand did this, sharing her opinions. So she knows that she's having her execs, her manager is looking at this and he's seeing her that, oh, this girl knows a lot about what is going on in the company. She's visible. She's making herself visible to two groups of people. One, her immediate supervisor, and two, the larger executives. Now, why is that important? It's important for one reason. Her manager can see her and say, okay, this girl is fabulous, this girl is fantastic, and put her name up to for promotion to the execs. And then they might be like, who is this one? Okay, as a brand manager, you have to be a bit more bold. You have to be, she's always quiet in meetings, and she might be good at the job, but we don't know her. And if we don't know her, do you think that she can handle a job that requires so much visibility and presence? So that is why to target audience. One was her manager, her immediate supervisor. Two is the exec. So making sure you cover those grounds. Now, how will she know she is making headway? She will know she's making headway when they give her more opportunities. So they're like, oh, Esther, you did so well on this. Esther, you did, so well when you presented the last time. Make sure you present this time again. Or giving her more opportunities within, okay, maybe handle this bigger aspect of the job or this bigger aspect of the project. Or we have a CSR thing. Can you lead it? Can you lead the team? That is how she knows she's getting headway. Or wait, she goes into a meeting one day and she's talking with an exec and someone just says, Esther, and you're like, oh my goodness, he knows my name. The MD of this thing knows my name. There are certain times when somebody calls your name in your meeting and you call your friends to be like, oh my God, they called my name in the meeting. It means that you are getting noticed, right? It means that you are visible. So these are the things that would happen that let you know that, okay, I'm making headway. But you wouldn't know if you wouldn't know whether you're making headway or not if at the beginning you didn't set out goals for yourself. So if you didn't set out a goal, you don't know, am I doing well? Am I not doing well? Am I moving at the pace I'm supposed to be moving at, or am I not moving at the pace? So it's very, very important that goal, setting out your goals and your objectives for building your personal brand. You do that at the beginning so that you are able to then evaluate and see, okay, is this working? Is this not working? I hope I've answered your question, Usman. Okay, he says yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, guys, I think we're 24 minutes over time already. Ijeoma has been very, very generous with her time. So thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing this. And I'm hoping that everybody has been able to take something away and is able to start building their personal brands, because that is, like Ijeoma has said, is what will give you the visibility to actually build a successful career. So thank you so much, Ijeoma. We really appreciate this. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all the knowledge shared. And thank you for also sharing the slides. That will be really helpful for everyone. And we're also going to, for everyone who is also in the program but couldn't make it today, we're going to share the video as well. So, and then anyone who wants to rewatch the session as well, we will share it with everyone. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nkemdi. Thank you, Obianuju. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.